Hello everyone, welcome to another video that is going to take us through the clown decade while we laugh at absolutely ridiculous things going on in the world. Unfortunately, there's a certain topic that I have to cover to some capacity because I literally can't avoid it. Yes, I am of course talking about the current war that is happening in the Ukraine with Russia and the Ukraine. If you'd like to hear my opinions on the politics of that, simply go to the latest Laughing at the Guardian episode, the one where I have economic erudite and reason vision, as we go through a surprisingly good Guardian article on why Putin did the invasion, and you'll get my perspective of it. Saves me the time of having to go through 20 minutes of it in a video again. For this video, I think we should just laugh at the funnies. Because in a way it is tragically funny what is going on with Russia at the moment. It's like every country and institution in the West is having a penis measuring contest to see who can put the most economic harm on your average everyday Russians as possible. But luckily in all this there is some objectively good news, and that's the news I'm going to go through first. Compare the Market pulls meerkat ads from TV news after Ukraine invasion. Site says fictional Russian billionaire Alexander Orlov has no association with the current situation. As if anyone thought that these meerkats in these really annoying adverts had anything to do with Putin wandering his tanks into the Ukraine. And just for people outside the UK, I am sure you don't know this, and maybe even people in the UK don't, because why would you watch TV? But basically, these meerkats were part of an ad campaign from, I'm not joking, this must go all the way back to 2012. Where for some reason in the UK, there's a massive market in making price comparison websites for things like home insurance, car insurance, grocery shopping, things like that. And they'd have really, really boring adverts at first in like 2008 saying, hey, we compare the market, we compare prices for you, isn't that great? And then all of a sudden they started trying to be really quirky with their adverts, and one of the examples is this compare the market advert, where originally it was, oh, we don't compare the meerkat.com, we compare the market.com. But of course in a better Russian accent than that. And for some reason it became such a massive and popular thing, I have no idea why, that now compare the market, for some reason you can get cheaper cinema tickets with them through their deals. And they even had a soft toy range for these things. It was mental, and it was really annoying, and people started to think meerkats were cute so would take them as pets, but it turns out meerkats don't make good pets, so they had to get rid of them. But apparently the advert being incredibly annoying was still a massive success, so I am very happy to see that all it took was Putin to invade Ukraine for this really annoying advert to be taken off the TV. But I'm not going to go through the article properly because it's not that interesting, but annoyingly it's not completely pulled from TV, it's just not going to be played on TV in ad breaks for news programmes. So unfortunately you're still going to see it in the breaks of The Simpsons. But I suppose we can't have everything. But we should get on to more serious news. And the more serious news is that the sanctions against Russia, there seems to be some massive, as I said before, penis measuring contest to see who can waste Russia's economy quickest. So we're going to start here from a tweet from Jacob Rees-Mogg, who said, the City of London leads the way in the effects of sanctioning Russian banks. And here we can see total value of Russian bank assets sanctioned. And the UK is ahead with just over £250 billion. Next up it's the United States on £240 billion. And the EU is way behind on about £40 billion. And how accurate those statistics were at the time Jacob Rees-Mogg posted that, I have no idea. I'm going to assume that there was some statistical magic reused here to make the UK seem better than the other countries, given it's specifically banks being sanctioned here, but again, it doesn't matter, because the next day, Keir Starmer put out this tweet. We are dealing with a Conservative government that only ever responds in the heat of the moment. We must introduce further and faster sanctions on Russian money in the UK, with a clip of him basically saying the same thing on Politics Live on Sunday. And don't get me wrong, I can understand if Ukraine is generally pro-Western, whether it truly is or not, you're going to want to do everything you can to push against the side that's invading them, which is Russia. So these politicians clearly want to do as much economic damage as they can, and sanctions are generally a good way to do that. I am not saying that I am necessarily for these sanctions. I am saying that if you want to get involved in the war somehow without military action, this is the way you will go. And having a few sanctions probably would have been enough. I don't see why you'd want to take revenge on Russia. You just want to strain their military operation by attacking them economically. But there seems to be some weird vendetta against Russia, and so every country on Earth, apart from China and Russia, obviously, we're just setting up to try and have the biggest sanctions on Russia imaginable to say, hey, we're helping this war more than you. And so, eventually, Liz Truss, the Foreign Secretary for the UK, admitted that the UK had been slower on Russian sanctions. Liz Truss blames Lords for making relevant post-Brexit legislation more onerous as MPs pass economic crime bill. So somehow this all comes back to Brexit as well, and honestly, it probably actually does affect it. The UK Foreign Secretary admitted on Monday that Britain had been slower than the EU and the US to impose sanctions on Russian oligarchs with links to President Vladimir Putin, blaming the House of Lords for making relevant legislation more onerous after Brexit. So yes, blame the House of Lords for making sanctioning more complicated, I guess. In a way, I kind of like that. I don't think sanctions should be that easy to impose, because I'm for economic freedom. The UK's departure from the EU was hailed as an opportunity for London to set its own rules, but it has so far imposed sanctions on fewer Kremlin-linked oligarchs than Brussels or Washington. The Financial Times has put that as if that's a contradiction. That's not a contradiction. Liz Truss suggested to MPs that the transition from EU sanctions law to the UK Sanctions and Anti-Money Laundering Act of 2018 was seized on by peers as a way to introduce a higher evidence threshold for imposing sanctions on individuals and entities. That doesn't sound like a bad idea to me. I think barriers between allowing the government to basically stop people from spending or selling their own assets is probably a good thing. You know, some of these oligarchs probably should, I mean, they call them oligarchs. Some of these rich Russians probably should have sanctions put on them. Maybe even all of them, I don't know. But I think going through a bit of scrutiny, rather than just putting a massive blanket all over everyone who's ever talked to President Vladimir Putin and owns a house in London, should be sanctioned. I think it's just better to think about it a bit more than that. But no, the whole world wants to say, no, just blanket ban on anything Russian. And I'm not joking, that is what happens. But before we properly get onto that, I do want to show you how the government will just never let a good crisis go to waste. MPs fast-tracked the long-awaited economic crime bill on Monday, which Prime Minister Boris Johnson has insisted will make it easier for the government to go harder and faster and place individuals linked to Putin under sanctions. The bill will now go to the Lords. Truss said that if Parliament passed the bill by March 14, the UK would be able to impose sanctions on hundreds of individuals by the following day because the law would enable London to mirror sanctions imposed by Brussels and Washington. The legislation debated by MPs on Monday placed a cap on potential damages and removes the appropriateness test, making it easier to impose sanctions, she said. So the government goes, oh no, we can't put sanctions on as quickly as Brussels or Washington. That means we need to just copy them. No, you might be doing things better. The appropriateness test might be the best thing about it, and you want to get rid of it. But no, we can't think sensibly. We've got Ruskies to show them what for. I guess no one's been sensible at all this decade, so why would they start now? So if governments weren't trying to do the my dad can beat up your dad route of trying to put bigger sanctions onto Russia than each other, it gets even worse in the private market because Visa and MasterCard suspend Russian operations. You've got a Visa or MasterCard over in Russia, your money's screwed. It's staying where it is. You can't buy your bread. Visa, MasterCard and American Express have announced they will suspend all operation in Russia in protest at its invasion of Ukraine. But Russia's major banks have already downplayed the impact the move will have on consumers. Shoppers will still be able to use the cards of purchase within Russia until they reach their expiry dates, but Visa, MasterCard or American Express cards issued abroad will no longer work at shops or ATMs in Russia. Clients will no longer be able to use their Russian cards abroad or for international payments online either. That is a big old oof. So it appears that they can still use their credit and debit cards within Russia if they are Russian-issued cards. But if you want to go over on a holiday in Russia as a Brit-bong and you try and use your British-issued MasterCard or Visa, nope, not going to work. Same with Russians coming over to the UK. But even so, when you think about it, that's quite a ridiculous thing because if you're wanting people to leave Russia and have Russia be slightly less economically productive, let's say, if they come over with a card that doesn't work, what was the point? Like, that's going to make them want to stay in Russia because they can actually use their money there. And all it's going to do is push Russia into the hands of China, from the looks of it, because all they're going to do is start using Chinese payment systems and Russian payment systems instead that are also worldwide. Because you've literally not given them a choice. You've pushed them away economically there. So now Russia and China are even more tied together economically. Is that really what you want? I don't think that's necessarily a good idea. Unless you manage to wipe out Russia's economy, which, I mean, that might not be out of the realm of possibilities. Because the private market's gone even further, with Sainsbury's, Asda, Tesco and Waitrose joining the boycott that all supermarkets are removing Russian products from sale. Yes, it's just ridiculous. I don't even think I need to go through it properly. Because how is trying to impact your bog standard Russian, who probably relies on jobs from companies that provide these things to the grocery stores, how is that helping us beat Russia? It's going to make the Russians hate the West even more than they may do already. While these companies and countries constantly try and virtue signal how humanitarian they're being with the Ukrainian people, they're being the complete opposite with the Russians, when really it's something we probably shouldn't even be that involved with. But no, let's keep attacking the Russian economy, I guess. Over the weekend, Sainsbury's and British retailer John Lewis and Partners, who own Waitrose, announced that they will be pulling Russian-produced stock from their shelves. Here are all of the supermarkets that have announced changes to their stock list in light of global current events. Well, this is going to be fun. On Sunday, Tesco announced that they would not be purchasing products from Russia for the foreseeable future. A spokesperson said that the supermarket would stop buying products from businesses that are wholly Russian-owned. The supermarket has become the latest in the industry to remove products like Russian standard vodka from sale, and that seems to be a worldwide thing, and I personally think it's just ridiculous. Because I'd happily take the stock of Russian standard vodka from all these people that do not want Russian standard vodka in their house or markets. But no, just got to take them off the shelves and waste them, I guess, or at least keep them in the back stocks until Russia is acceptable again. Obviously, I'm not going to go through all these, but my god, some need to be gone through. British retailers John Lewis and Waitrose announced that they would no longer sell products made in Russia, beginning with the removal of Russian vodka and a line of pizza oven pellets. Yes, apparently Russia is so bad you're not even allowed to sell wooden pellets that you burn in pizza ovens anymore. The partnership is currently reviewing products that have components of Russian origin to find out what else should be removed from their shelves, Reuters have reported. So when components of Russian origin, they mean anything with even an ingredient from Russia would not be allowed. Even if, say, your bacon sandwich had a bit of salt on it that came from Russia, no, can't have that anymore. It's Russian and Russia bad. So finally we have Marks and Spencer's, who halted all shipments to its Russian franchise stores, most of which are based in Moscow and operated by Turkish franchise partners, leaving shelves empty in 40 shops across the country. Again, just ridiculous. Marks and Spencer's, who maybe some Russians relied on for their food, can't have it anymore. Why? Oh, your government's bad. What a ridiculous way to think. I'm going to literally limit my food supply to common people in a different country because their government is full of people I don't like. The virtue signaling contest in these shops is just ridiculous, but it's the world we live in. It's Clown Decade. I'm very conscious I'm saying ridiculous a lot, but it is Clown Decade, so I don't know why I'm so self-conscious about it, because I really shouldn't be, because it should be the standard word we say to describe absolutely any event going on. Having said that, we do actually get on to something a bit more sensible now. Shell to halt buying Russian oil and gas and close all service stations in country. Maybe not the latter one, but stopping buying Russian oil and gas I can kind of understand. Firm apologises for crude oil purchases last week as it moves to end all Russian dealings. Unfortunately, that last part is, again, ridiculous. Shell were basically guilted into stopping doing business with Russian oil companies, when Shell is an adult corporation and it is perfectly capable of making its own decisions. Shell has announced plans to withdraw from Russian oil and gas and close all its service stations in the country, as the boss of the FTSE 100 company apologised for buying Russian crude oil last week. The company will immediately stop buying Russian crude oil on the spot market and not renew term contracts. It will also change its crude oil supply chain to remove Russian supplies, but said this could take weeks to complete and would lead to reduced throughput at some of its refineries. Shell will also shut its service stations, aviation fuels and lubricants operations in Russia and start a phased withdrawal from Russian petroleum products, pipeline gas and liquefied natural gas. This is a complex challenge, it said in a statement on Tuesday. Changing this part of the energy system will require concerted action by governments, energy suppliers and customers, and a transition to other energy supplies will take much longer. So since the entire West has decided that relying on Russia oil and gas is now a bad idea, which to be honest I always thought it was a bad idea, we are now unsurprisingly greenlighting big fossil fuel projects in the West, which is going to piss off Extinction Rebellion to no end, which makes me very happy. Green light for North Sea projects. Fear that the UK can no longer rely on imported fossil fuels has driven the Prime Minister to OK the plans. Oh yes. Boris Johnson has announced plans to exploit new areas of the North Sea for oil and gas reserves for the first time in 3 years amid spiralling energy prices after Russia invaded the Ukraine, so much fitting that net 2050 zero target. The Prime Minister announced yesterday that the government was drawing up proposals to intensify Britain's energy self-reliance by boosting the deployment of renewable electricity and using more of our own hydrocarbons in the North Sea. I hope we can start doing that in Yorkshire too with all the fracking we can do. The Times understands that ministers are looking to announce the first new round of exploration licences in the region since 2019. They are also looking for regulators to give the go-ahead to field development plans for up to 6 North Sea oil and gas projects, exploiting resources that were found years ago, but which still need environmental and safety approval to begin production. Yeah, because when we say oil and gas exploration, it's a bit of a misnomer. We actually know where all the oil and gas is on planet Earth. When we say oil and gas exploration these days, we more mean things like that. Is it safe to extract? Is it economically viable to extract? I basically do that by drilling these wells, seeing how easy it is and how efficient it is to dig up all this oil and gas. And hopefully it'll be efficient enough to be worth it, because burning our hydrocarbons is probably better than burning Russia's. And that's been my opinion even before Russia annexed Crimea, so you can't call me a cook on that one. So now to the actual geopolitics of this. What have all these sanctions and moves by the West actually done to Russia? Well, the Moscow Exchange has remained closed since the 24th of February, and that was after MOEX, the Moscow Stock Exchange, plummeted a third, 33%, after it launched the war on the Ukraine. And in terms of the entire month of February, it dropped 35% compared to the entire month of January. I don't think you need an expert to say that that is very bad. And it just seems that the Russian government and stock exchange is really trying to push back the inevitable, which is the total collapse of the Russian economy. And the ruble isn't really doing that much better, given that just less than 2 weeks ago, it was worth about a 90th of a penny per ruble, whereas now it's worth about half a penny per ruble. And as you can see from the graph there, over the course of the past year, you get to the end of February, it drops like a ton of bricks, and it's probably going to stay down there. Of course, if people with rubles in their bank accounts can't even use the bloody things outside of Russia, how are they supposed to even compete on the global currency market? So well done, Western companies and Western governments. You have made life incredibly difficult for your average Russian person who did absolutely nothing wrong. Do you really think they're going to see you as the liberators from the dictator of Mr. Vladimir Putin by doing this? Or do you think they're going to resent you more? It's something you should maybe think about, because when they do finally get democratic elections over in Russia, I reckon they're going to vote someone in who's worse than Putin for you. And it's worth noting that this probably isn't only going to affect Russians, as the Times said today. Living standards for UK households set for the greatest fall since the 1970s. And for those of you that don't know, the 1970s was pretty dire for those of us in the UK. You can thank Labour governments giving trade unions too much power and bringing the country to its knees, essentially. Thank God for Maggie Thatcher. British households face the worst drop in living standards in half a century as rising energy prices are set to push inflation to record highs. Families in the UK are in line for a £1,000 hit to their take-home pay this year, according to a think tank. This represents a 4% drop in real income, which is the value of earnings after they are adjusted for the impact of inflation, and the steepest annual loss in spending power since the mid-1970s. The Resolution Foundation said in its annual report on the outlook for living standards. And the article does go into that this would probably have been an issue even before the Ukrainian crisis, with rapidly rising inflation being a huge issue, which, oh my god, every free marketeer has been talking about for the last decade or so. But along with the fact that all these sanctions on Russian oil, which it would mainly be a problem for Europe, but still it's 5% of our energy market that relies on Russian oil and gas, that will also have an effect along with all this huge inflation. And now, obviously, as I said, we've got this big oil and gas world market that's now basically lost a massive supply of it. Hence, as we saw before, the North Sea is now going to be explored to see if there's anything viable to actually get out of those wells. Who knows, maybe even fracking would be finally profitable, but we'll see about that. But yeah, good luck being a commoner these days. You're either being bombed to bits in Kiev by the Russians, or you're getting your economic balls twisted by every government on the planet. And if you're Russian, you'll even be having them twisted by Western corporations because they like to show that they're on the good side of history. Don't you just love the clown world, people? With that, that's everything I had to show you today. So as usual, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.